There's a story in the Eastern tradition about the Buddha and the demon Mara. Now, in case you're not familiar, I'll give you a 15-second primer on Mara. Mara is a demon who represents our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, all the evil that exists in the world. Sort of an Eastern version of the devil. And throughout the Buddha's existence, Mara would show up periodically, trying to shake or rattle him. So one day the Buddha was teaching a bunch of his followers. They were sitting in the grass in front of him. And Adadin, who was the Buddha's faithful servant, right-hand man, chief of staff, use whatever you want, noticed that Mara was lurking in the back of the crowd. Now, Adadin was paid to worry about everything. And so he ran up to the Buddha breathlessly and he said, "Buddha, Buddha, Mara is back there in the crowd." And the Buddha kind of looked up and surveyed the crowd and nodded his head and gave Adadin the ancient version of chillax. Okay. And the Buddha stood up and he looked back at Mara and he said, "Mara, I see you. Come on, let's have tea." Huh? I tell you that story because recently I had the privilege to work with somebody who had recently lost their job. Matter of fact, they had made up a great presentation to help the company get more business, gave that presentation in a morning staff meeting. And after the staff meeting, the head of the company said, "Hey, stick around for a few minutes. I want to talk to you." And they really felt that they were going to get a pat on the back, maybe a raise, a promotion. So instead, when the boss closed the door, sat down and looked at him, you ever heard those words? There's no easy way to say this. Apparently, despite the good work this person had done, they were going to be let go. It was a business decision. They were the last one in, so they would be the first one out. And they sat there stunned. Well, a few weeks later when we started working together, they approached the first session with me all full of, as we used to say in the old days, vim and vigor. They were ready to go. They had a killer resume. They were doing networking. They were lining up people to talk to. They were going to get back in the saddle immediately, and this was simply going to be a blip on the screen. There ain't no holding me back now. And I sat there for a minute, and I listened to them. And the story of the Buddha and Mara kind of entered into my way of thinking. So I said to them, I said, "Well, how do you feel about losing your job?" And they gave me a, "Well, I'm not happy about it. Good place to work, good people and everything else. But, I'm ready to go. Here, I want you to take a look at this. And here's some practice interviews I've done with a friend of mine. And I want to get going. And I've come to you because you can help me get to the next level." All the right things. And I waited again and I said, "But tell me, how do you feel about this?" And it's sort of when the crack occurred. And they said, "I'm really bitter and I'm really angry. I worked really hard for this company and I brought them a lot of business in the 2 years I was there. And there were people who had been there longer than me, sure. But they didn't do half the work I did. I am really angry." I said, "Good. Now we can get somewhere." You see, we've been conditioned from birth to take the bad things and push them aside and take all the good and motivational and wonderful things and just say, "That's what I'm going to focus on." Amen. I agree with you 150%. But there's a Dave Matthews Band song that's titled "The Space Between." And in between that event that occurs and in between us shaking our heads and moving forward, there's that space where we need to say, "Mara, I see you. Let's have tea. There's that space where we recognize and acknowledge that crummy, bad, nasty things are going to happen to us. We have to stop and we have to deal with them. Otherwise, if we don't, no matter how good our intentions, we'll never truly be successful or happy. So I'm John Jerkowitz, and I hope you have a great week.